some of the most incredible information I think the world, or at this point, a few of you of the world have just heard. And as we look into this, I think you're going to see the significance. Now let me prepare you for this understanding a little further here. As you've heard me say in my other video series, that the abyss is symbolic. It is metaphorical. It's allegorical. At the same time, it's an actual location. And it's a location that we're finding out that is representative of two types of beings. One is physical, one is in the spirit. Now, I've described to you before and told you that the location of the abyss is the North Pole, in which it is, because we're talking about the physical descendancy of the sons of God of Genesis 6, which have been living and dying, as the book of Enoch records, for about 500-year lifespans. And they have been maintaining a continual descendancy, a cultural civilization. The culture represents the culture of the fallen ones, okay? This illumination, this enlightenment, this fellowship with the fallen prince of this world. That's what their culture is all about. That is underneath the North Pole. Now, there's many, many, many locations to get into their inner earth network of caverns, but the main hub is underneath the North Pole. That's the physical abyss. Now let's talk about the spiritual abyss. The spiritual abyss has to be in relationship to the spirit beings that have lived and died. Once these descendants of the fallen sons of God of Genesis 6 have died, we find out that their spirits are denied from entering back into heaven, which means they are going to be bound and contained on earth indefinitely. Well, we find out where that location is, right here in the book of Ezekiel. It's going to be underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza. That is the location of the spiritual containment, in other words, the spiritual abyss. And we've got a bunch to talk about that will show you obvious connections, evidences that will support that, just as you see the Bible is telling us. But I'm not going to be able to go into the fullness of the detail because we're smack dab in the middle of another series right here. And just because it's relative to chapter 19, I've been debating whether I was going to share this with you in this series or not, and I've just decided to do it because it will allow you from this point on to maybe see things a little differently and maybe look into this further yourself. And I plan on coming back as I connect this to the seal. I'm going to do another video about the Great Seal, and when I do that, I'm going to connect this information back into great detail to that series. Right now, I'm just going to give you a topographical overview, but give you some good details too that are going to support this. So the abyss is two locations. One is the physical hub of these fallen sons of God, the entrance North Pole. The other is where these beings in the spirit are being maintained and kept. And yes, it has everything to do with crystal. If I remember correctly, something I learned a very, very long time ago, and I didn't research it, I didn't go to Google it, or I didn't check it out. I'm not sure if I'm exactly right on this. I'm pretty sure I got a good memory. If I'm not mistaken, the Great Pyramid of Giza is 80% quartz crystal. Now we're talking about the interior. And I'm pretty sure about that at least the makeup of the stone has something to do with crystal and quartz in such a way that I remember the quote was 80%. Very interesting, because we know that the containment of these beings has a lot to do with quartz crystal, and then at the same time, communication with these beings has a lot to do with quartz crystal. And if you heard me say in my earlier videos, probably over a year ago, I told you that the Great Pyramid of Giza is a communication device. At the time that I told you that, I was unaware of this. But it's going to prove the validity of what I said over a year ago, that I was on the right path and that I was seeing things for what they are. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a communication device in multiple levels, and we find out that one of the ways this communication goes down is with these beings in the abyss. I'll be back.